I had been in a quiet, 3-year relationship with Chloe when she suddenly told everyone she was engaged. The man wasn't me. Someone who knew our history was upset for me, but Chloe just gave a cold laugh. If you feel so bad for him, why don't you marry that broke loser yourself? Not long after, my grandfather's health got much worse, and our family company was on the verge of failing. I was backed into a corner and had to publicly announce I had a pregnant wife so I could secure my inheritance. "Mr. Foster," a reporter asked, "is your child in any way connected to Ms. Vance?" I managed a calm smile for the cameras. "My child has nothing to do with Ms. Vance." I heard later that when Chloe saw me looking so pale on TV, she broke everything in her room. A while after that, someone took a photo of New York's most private and mysterious heiress whispering to a man on a busy street. "Adam," she'd said, "our baby is almost 1 year old and about to say Dada. When are you going to make this official?" When I pushed open the door to the private room, Chloe was down on one knee, holding a massive diamond ring, but she wasn't proposing to me. In front of her was a handsome, well-dressed young man in a white shirt. He was moved to tears, nodding and saying, "I do." I walked in. Chloe didn't even look up, completely focused on sliding the ring onto the young man's finger. It wasn't until his friends took him to the restroom to compose himself that Chloe finally gave me a detached look. Julian is a simple guy, and he's shy. It took me a lot of effort to win him over. It would be best if he never found out about the messy history between you and me. She paused. Also, he accepted my proposal. I plan on announcing our engagement tomorrow. Chloe and I had been in a secret relationship for 3 years. Besides our grandparents, only a handful of people in our social circle knew the truth. When she said that, the few people in the room who knew what was going on all looked over at me. I took a deep breath. "Chloe, can you please hold off on the announcement, even just for a month? No, 2 weeks." Chloe let out a laugh, a faint trace of mockery in her eyes. "Adam, it's come to this, and you're still clinging to me?" "Chloe, for old time's sake, enough!" Chloe's face turned to ice as she slammed her wine glass on the table. 3 years. My family has covered at least $300 million of your family's losses. Isn't that enough?" I was speechless. "You should go. I don't want Julian to come back and get the wrong idea." I turned stiffly. As I opened the door to leave, I heard Chloe say to someone, "If you feel so bad for him, why don't you marry that broke loser yourself?" I couldn't help but laugh at myself. The Foster family really had fallen from grace. After my parents passed away, the company nearly fell apart. But Chloe seemed to have forgotten that it was our broke family that had saved her and her grandfather's lives all those years ago. All she remembered was her resentment, feeling that my family had held that debt over her head, forcing me on her. The news of Chloe and Julian's engagement quickly spread throughout New York. My grandfather, who was already in poor health since my parents' death, was so upset he ended up in the ICU. While I was at the hospital keeping a round-the-clock watch, my uncle forced his way into the company. Before, with the Vance family's backing, they wouldn't have dared to make a move. But now that I was an orphan with no one to support me, they had no problem trying. During a brief moment when he was awake, my grandfather gripped my hand and said just one thing. "Adam, the company was your parents' life's work. Even if you have to burn it to the ground, you can't let those vultures get their hands on it." My eyes filled with tears. "Don't worry, Grandpa. I have a plan." My uncle and his family were focused on an old family rule. A male heir of the Foster family couldn't inherit the business without a child of his own. They were using it as an excuse to seize control of everything. But I would not let them win. The week after Chloe announced her engagement, I made the most absurd yet most important decision of my life. I needed a child to inherit the foster family business. Our lifelong family butler, Mr. Harding, placed a file with the final candidate's information in front of me. "Mr. Adam, please take a look." The file was simple. The woman was from Los Angeles and had her father's last name, which suggested a single-parent household. Her academic record was impressive, a testament to her high intelligence and good genes. A detailed medical report confirmed she had a clean background, with no hidden issues. Most importantly, the face in the photograph was so stunning, it was almost disorienting. "Mr. Harding, are you sure a woman this exceptional needs to make this kind of deal?" I asked, puzzled. Mr. Harding smiled kindly. "It seems someone in her family is seriously ill and she needs a lot of money fast." I thought of my grandfather in the hospital and felt a pang of sympathy. "Give her an extra $500,000. "Yes, Mr. Adam." 12 days after Chloe's announcement, which also happened to be the day of my own engagement, I met the woman named Sophia Reed. She was wearing a plain black shirt and pants, with no visible brand. They were probably cheap clothes from a department store, but even an outfit that cost less than $100 didn't look cheap on her. As stipulated in the contract, her eyes were covered with a black silk blindfold. When I pushed the door open, she instinctively stood up and turned toward the sound. I then realized how tall she was, at least 5'6". My gaze fell on Sophia Reed's face beside me. Her lips were thin. I'd heard that people with thin lips were naturally cold-hearted. For a moment I was lost in thought. Cold-hearted was good. Cold-hearted was perfect for this kind of transaction. A clean break with no strings attached. Just as I was about to speak, my phone rang. I answered it. Chloe's voice sounded strangely unfamiliar. "Adam, why didn't you tell me Grandpa was in the hospital?" "It's not exactly a secret." "Where are you now? I'll pick you up. We can go to the hospital together to see him." "That's not necessary." "Adam, your grandfather was always very good to me. I want him to have some peace of mind at a time like this." I said that's not necessary. Thank you for the thought. "Adam, you should know when to stop." Her voice was already laced with suppressed anger. I knew her well. For someone as proud and arrogant as her, calling me to offer an olive branch was a rare gesture. But it really wasn't necessary. After all, it was too late. When I opened my eyes the next day, I was in clean, soft pajamas. The other side of the bed was empty, as if everything that happened last night had just been a dream. I dragged myself out of bed to wash up. When I went downstairs for breakfast, Mr. Harding informed me that Sophia Reed had left during the night, just as we'd agreed. I sat down at the table. Thinking of her boldness last night, of how I'd lost control and succumbed, I felt the back of my neck grow hot. Was she paid? 1/3 of the payment was transferred as per the agreement. The remainder will be paid upon confirmation. I nodded and said no more. At the Intercontinental Hotel, Sophia Reed had long since changed out of her cheap clothes. After a swim in the private rooftop pool, her family's butler was already waiting in the living room. "Your mother heard you were in town. She'd like you to join her for dinner tonight." Sophia casually tossed her towel aside and smirked. "She's got something else up her sleeve, doesn't she?" "You'll be 25 after the new year. You can't blame your mother for being anxious." Sophia walked to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. She pushed her soaked hair back, revealing a smooth forehead and a pale neck. "What's the rush? In a little while, she might have another son-in-law to worry about." Sophia drank some water and teased the butler who had known her since she was a child. The butler was horrified. "My dear young lady, you can't be serious. You are the sole heir to both the Grant and Miller families. You're more precious than gold. You can't just be so casual about this. The man who marries you must do so with all the proper ceremony." "I know." Sophia sat down on the sofa, her eyes falling on the still visible bite mark on her left forearm. As she recalled that night, a gentle look slowly softened her features. The day before I was to meet Sophia again, I ran into Chloe at a party. Surprisingly, she wasn't with her fiancé, Julian. After spotting her from a distance, I averted my gaze. Today was the birthday of Mrs. Dalton, a family friend. I'd chosen to attend in the hopes of reconnecting with some of my parents' old acquaintances. However, it was clear I had been too naive. I had long understood that friends disappear when your fortune does, but experiencing it firsthand was something else entirely. Although my relationship with Chloe had been a secret, you can't keep something like that completely quiet. For those 3 years, I had certainly benefited from the Vance family's influence to secure my own standing. But now that Chloe had announced her engagement, who would give a penniless orphan like me a second glance? My raised glass was left hanging awkwardly in the air for a long moment before Mrs. Dalton, as if only just noticing me, finally clinked her glass against mine. It was obvious she had no intention of making small talk. I certainly wasn't going to embarrass myself further. I made the toast and retreated to a quiet corner. Being snubbed so coldly put me in a foul mood. Before I knew it, I'd had a few too many drinks. Chloe appeared at my side at some point. "Adam?" She looked me up and down with her usual air of superiority. But I no longer felt the need to walk on eggshells, desperately trying to maintain our connection. "Ms. Vance." After a cool greeting, I prepared to leave. Chloe blocked my way. "Adam, I went to see your grandfather a few days ago. He's not doing well." "I know. The doctor spoke with me." Chloe's voice seemed to soften. "Adam, I've also heard about the recent turmoil at your family's company." "What are you trying to say, Ms. Vance?" I looked at her, my expression calm but distant. When I was younger, I was truly naive. I thought because we had known each other since childhood, grown up together, and because my family had done her and her grandfather a great service, she would surely treat me well. I completely overlooked the fact that if a woman doesn't like you, not even a debt of gratitude can bind her. And my family leveraging that favor was in itself a despicable act. Thinking about it, Chloe hadn't really wronged me. After all, you can't force matters of the heart. Chloe slowly stepped forward and gently took my hand. "Adam, if you weren't so stubborn, I wouldn't be against helping you." "Helping me?" "Yes. After all, your family saved my grandfather and me." Chloe let out a small laugh. "I've been waiting for you to cave these past few days. Adam, we've known each other for so many years. I'm not going to just stand by and watch you sink." "Chloe, just say what you want." "I won't marry you, but we can maintain our previous arrangement." I looked at Chloe, surprised. After all, the way she had proposed to Julian that night was so heartfelt, so profound, it could move heaven and earth. Apparently, it was all just for show. "You're already engaged." "So what? Who in our circle doesn't have a few special friends on the side?" Chloe looked at me, proud and conceited. "Adam, with the foster company in its current state, you should know what the smart choice is. Being with me can only benefit you." "Chloe." I cut her off, disgusted. Before today, I honestly didn't hate you at all. In fact, I was reflecting on how my family had acted despicably by holding that favor over your head. But I don't think that way anymore. Chloe, you are an absolute piece of trash. If my family had known they were saving an ungrateful snake, a total scumbag, they would have deeply regretted ever lending a hand. Adam, running your mouth won't do you any good. Think about your parents' life's work. If it's truly lost because of you, what would they think in their graves? If my parents knew I kept the company by being your secret lover, they would never forgive me in their graves. Adam, you'd better think this through. You know I won't give you a third chance. I picked up my glass and threw the drink in her face. Get out! Chloe's face was ashen. She was clearly furious. I was even prepared for her to hit me. A princess like her had never been treated with such disrespect. Adam Foster, I'll be waiting for the day you regret this. The day you come back, crying and begging me. With that, Chloe turned and walked away. A buzz of whispers filled the room. I stood there, oblivious to it all, then turned and walked out. As soon as I got in the car, Mr. Harding called. Sir, she's here? I know. I'm on my way back. I hung up and stared out the car window at the dark sky. The day after we registered the marriage, my grandfather was declared to be in critical condition again. While my relatives were cornering me at the office, demanding I hand over the company seal, I called the media and held a press conference. At the conference, I announced my marriage and introduced my wife and daughter, who had never been seen in public. I declared that I would continue to lead the company my parents had built. Shortly after a brief Q&A with reporters, I got a call from Chloe. She was clearly enraged, her voice hoarse. Adam Foster, I never slept with you. What is this about a child? This is some kind of scam you've cooked up, isn't it? I could understand Chloe's anger. All told, it had barely been a year since we broke up. You're right, you never slept with me. But I never said the child was yours, did I? I stepped into the elevator and looked at my reflection in the mirrored wall. Chloe, we broke up a long time ago. Our lives have nothing to do with each other anymore. Please don't call me again. What the hell is going on? You'd better explain yourself. I didn't answer. I hung up and immediately deleted her number. From now on, this would be my biggest secret. The woman named Sophia Reed had taken the money I gave her and returned to Los Angeles after giving birth to our daughter. We would never see each other again. Contrary to what I expected, my daughter didn't look much like me. Mr. Harding said her eyes, brows, and jawline were the spitting image of Sophia Reed's. Let's call her Lily, I said. Looking at her, I often felt a sense of dislocation. I had made Sophia wear a blindfold so she wouldn't know what I looked like or who I was. But Mr. Harding had seen her. If he said so, it must be true. So that's what Sophia Reed's eyes looked like. Even with the blindfold, I could vaguely tell she was beautiful. A woman like that, once she was out of her predicament, would have a limitless future. She would surely want to forget this sordid chapter of her life, even more than I did. So I didn't have to worry about her suddenly showing up to fight me for the child. I didn't have to worry about ever seeing her again. But every time I looked at my daughter, I couldn't help but think of those 2 nights. In this lifetime, she might be the only woman I would ever be with, and those 2 nights might be all the pleasure I would ever know. At Lily's 1-month celebration, the famously private and mysterious Reed family of New York sent an extravagant gift. I was surprised. The Vances, even at the height of their influence, couldn't compare to the Reeds, let alone the now faded Foster family. The Foster and Reed families had never had any dealings. We weren't even in the same league. Why would they send such a valuable gift? What surprised me even more was that when Lily turned 100 days old, Mrs. Reed herself paid a visit and invited me for a small get-together in 3 days. I was deeply apprehensive and confused. But Mrs. Reed was a warm and gracious woman, and she seemed to bear me no ill will. She was especially fond of my daughter. During her visit, besides bringing a gift for me, she also brought a generous gift for Lily. As she was leaving, She held the baby, unable to put her down, and kept looking back with a longing expression that only deepened my suspicion. So, 3 days later, when I went to meet her, I specifically asked Mr. Harding to stay home and watch the baby. I took only my assistant and driver to the private club owned by Mrs. Reed. My car had just pulled up when several people rushed out to greet me. "Mr. Foster, please come in. Mrs. Reed has been waiting for you." "Yes, she told us to wait outside for your car." "Thank you," I said with a polite smile, following them toward the flower-filled hall. Unexpectedly, I saw a dark gray Bentley pull up slowly in the distance. The driver hurried to open the door, and an exquisitely poised woman got out. Through a row of flowering trees, I could only make out her silhouette. But my heart inexplicably skipped a beat. I even stopped in my tracks. I had never seen Sophia Reed in the daylight or under bright lights, but the moment I saw that figure, it felt strangely familiar. Then I immediately dismissed the thought. Sophia Reed was from Los Angeles. Her mother was from there too. Mr. Harding had chosen her precisely because she wasn't from New York and lived far away in LA. She wouldn't just suddenly appear in New York. But it's not like I owned New York. I had no power to forbid Sophia Reed from ever setting foot here. It wouldn't be strange if she did come to the city. But could it be her, Mr. Foster? The person beside me called out softly. I snapped back to reality and hurried to catch up. "Does Mrs. Reed have other guests today?" The person in front of me smiled warmly. "Our young mistress just returned to the city." He then gestured toward the Bentley. "That's her car." So the woman I saw was Mrs. Reed's only daughter. Mrs. Reed herself had married into the Reed family from Los Angeles. Her daughter would naturally be named Reed. So it wasn't Sophia Reed. I breathed a sigh of relief, yet I felt an inexplicable sense of disappointment. This feeling of loss made me want to laugh at myself. Why should I be disappointed? Was I secretly hoping to see Sophia Reed again? Our relationship was nothing but a business transaction. Once the deal was done, it should have been a clean break. As I thought this, my mind was still in a daze. When I entered the hall, I heard laughter. The person talking with Mrs. Reed was likely her daughter. I instinctively looked up and met the woman's eyes. They were eyes I had never seen before, yet it felt as if I had seen them countless times. My heart stopped for a second. My thoughts seemed to freeze. "Mr. Foster is here." Mrs. Reed stood up with a cheerful laugh, took my hand, and led me to a seat. She then ordered the servants to bring tea. "Sophia, this is Mr. Foster." Mrs. Reed looked at her daughter, then back at me, her smile widening. "Mr. Foster, this is my good-for-nothing daughter." "Mr. Foster, I've heard so much about you," Sophia Reed said, walking up to me and extending her hand. My heart started beating again, gradually growing faster. My mind was still a blank slate, but a buzzing sound started in my ears. I didn't respond politely. I didn't shake her hand. I even looked at Mrs. Reed with a shocking lack of manners. "Mrs. Reed, what did you just call her?" Mrs. Reed looked surprised, but still smiled. "It's her name, Sophia." "Sophia Reed," I mumbled, repeating the name. Sophia Reed. I looked at the woman in front of me. She was almost the same height as the Sophia I knew. If I covered her eyes and brows, leaving only her nose and lips, my body swayed slightly. "Mr. Foster?" Sophia Reed quickly reached out to steady me, but I pushed her away, raised my hand, and gently covered her eyes. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. I remembered the first night we were together. I had thought to myself that Sophia Reed's lips were a bit thin, and people said such women were cold-hearted. But for me, cold-hearted was good. Cold-hearted was better for this transaction. But if Sophia Reed was her, why did she deceive me like this? She was a princess, born with a silver spoon, impossibly wealthy, yet she pretended to be a poor student and entered into such a ridiculous deal with me. Fine. Let's say it was for fun, for the thrill of it. Then, after the transaction was over, we should have gone our separate ways. Why did she suddenly appear in my life again, inserting herself into my and my child's lives? At that moment, it all clicked. I understood why the Reed family had sent a gift for the 1-month celebration, why Mrs. Reed had personally visited when Lily was 100 days old, and why she adored Lily so much. They all knew. They knew Lily was Sophia Reed's child. They wanted to take my child away from me. My hand dropped from Sophia Reed's face. She was clearly panicking. Adam, she instinctively tried to grab me, but I shoved her hand away. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well. I need to go. Mr. Foster, you look terribly pale. Let Sophia drive you. I wiped away a tear and looked at Sophia Reed, unable to hold back a bitter laugh. Sophia Reed. Should I call you Sophia Reed or Miss Reed, the heiress? Adam. I didn't linger. I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. Mrs. Reed and Sophia both followed me, but I didn't want to stop for even a second. It was all too sudden, too much for me to accept. I felt like a clown who had been kept in the dark the whole time. Adam, can you just listen to me for a minute? Sophia grabbed my wrist. I shook her off without a second thought. If I remember correctly, our contract was very clear. After the transaction was complete, there were to be no further ties between us. You took the money, so you should honor the agreement, Miss Reed. I don't care if you're Sophia Reed or the great Reed heiress. The relationship between us ended last year, and I don't care what you're trying to do by showing up now. I took a deep breath, slowly composing myself. I only have one thing to say. The child is mine. Her last name is Foster. She has nothing to do with you or your family, and no one is going to take her from me. Adam, I never thought about taking the child. Fine. If that's the case, then I'm the one being petty. Forget I said anything. I want to go home now. May I? Perhaps my state was truly that bad, because Sophia didn't try to stop me again. Mrs. Reed called me several times afterward, but I didn't answer. Sophia also came to the Foster residence to visit, but I refused to see her. Lily grew day by day, and just as Mr. Harding had said, her eyes and brows were a mirror image of Sophia's. I also managed to learn a few things about Sophia from him. She was the only child of her parents. On both her maternal grandfather's side, the Millers, and her paternal grandfather's side, the Grants, she was the sole heir. She had 2 identities. In Los Angeles, she was Miss Sophia Reed of the Reed family. In New York, she was the young mistress of the Reed family. Actually, it wasn't really a deception. Sophia Reed was her real name. But thinking back on my meager knowledge of her past made me feel embarrassed. The sole heir to 2 powerful families. And I had pitied her, wanting to give her an extra $500,000. I wonder if Sophia was laughing at how foolish I was when she took the money. Sometimes I really couldn't figure it out. A woman like her could have any man she wanted, any thrill she desired. Why did she have to play with me like this? She said she had no intention of taking the child, but I wasn't naive enough to believe her. Both families had so few heirs. Even if Sophia didn't care, the elders certainly would. What if they really decided to fight me for Lily? I didn't dare to imagine the consequences. The outcome was obvious. It would be like an ant trying to stop a car. Although I refused to meet with anyone from the Reed family, Sophia still managed to seep into my life without a sound. The Reed family truly showed no signs of wanting to fight me for Lily. On the contrary, the gifts they sent for me and Lily were a near daily occurrence. Even when I refused to accept them, they persisted. Sometimes even Mr. Harding would try to persuade me. For a family of their stature to be this humble is truly rare. As he said this, Sophia was waiting downstairs. It was September in New York, still hot and humid. Around noon, the sun was scorching. Sophia's bangs were damp with sweat, and a large patch on the back of her shirt was soaked through. "Sir, I really don't think the Reed family has any ulterior motives. And Miss Reed, she doesn't seem like a bad person," Mr. Harding said, looking downstairs with a hint of pity. "You've seen it for yourself this past month. Honestly, with Miss Reed's background, if she really wanted to do something, why would she go through all this trouble?" I couldn't help but look downstairs, too. Sophia had been standing there for nearly 2 hours. The summer heat was still intense. If something happened to her... I thought of Lily, and of Lily's eyes, which were identical to hers. In the end, my heart softened. "Let her in. Have the kitchen prepare some iced tea to help with the heat." I spoke softly, my eyes fixed on Sophia's beautiful, noble face. After a long moment, I looked away. "I'll be down in a minute. I need to have a proper talk with her." Mr. Harding went downstairs, overjoyed. I sat upstairs for a while, changed into a fresh shirt, and then went down. Sophia was sitting in the living room, drinking tea. When she saw me, she put down her cup and stood up. "Mr. Foster?" I had the servants leave and got straight to the point. "Miss Reed, let's have a real talk today. What exactly do you and Mrs. Reed want with all of this?" Sophia looked at me, silent for a long moment. I heard the ticking of the wall clock, the occasional lazy chirp of the caged birds on the porch, and what sounded like Lily's faint crying from a distance, which then stopped. Everything was quiet. The air conditioning was on, but my heart was a mess of frustration. Just as my patience wore thin and I was about to ask her to leave again, Sophia finally spoke. "Mr. Foster, I would like to ask you to marry me." She paused. "The real deal, a proper wedding, the whole 9 yards." I was stunned. The teacup in my hand nearly fell, but Sophia continued. "Mr. Foster, this isn't a sudden impulse, nor is it a decision made after careful consideration of all the pros and cons." "Then what is it?" Sophia gave a faint smile. "Adam, I don't know if you remember, but 20 years ago, you and your grandfather rescued some people at sea." Of course I remembered. I was only a few years old then, but my grandfather told me the story so often that I still remembered it today. Chloe and her grandfather were among those our family's private yacht rescued. I was one of the people you rescued. But my grandfather never mentioned you. A cousin of mine took me out on the boat that day. He was afraid his family would find out and punish him, so he concealed my identity. I was only 8 years old. The ordeal at sea terrified me. I nearly died. In the end, the only thing I remembered was the character for Foster carved on the yacht. As Sophia spoke, her voice softened instantly. "And a very small, very cute little boy who gave me a cup of hot water." Adam, for all these years, I never gave up on the idea. I wanted to find that person and marry him. Sophia had been gone for a long time, but my mind was still in chaos. I called Mr. Harding into the study. "Mr. Harding, how did you find Sophia Reed in the first place?" "Sir, actually, it was Miss Reed who approached me," Mr. Harding said, not daring to look at me. "I had already selected 2 candidates for you, and was about to send you their files. But Miss Reed's information and resume were so clean, so perfect, I was privately very inclined to choose her. So I let her cut in line. I didn't expect you to choose her as well. I didn't know whether to be angry or amused. She was certainly confident. Did she ever consider what would have happened if I hadn't chosen her? It was only then that I remembered. I had seen her picture. Her ID photo was in the file Sophia had sent. And I really was captivated by her face at first sight. Mr. Harding, what am I supposed to do now? Sir, you're not even 25 yet. When you said you wouldn't marry or start a family again, I never agreed with it in my heart. You're so young, with your whole life ahead of you. If Miss Reed is sincere, there's no harm in giving it a try with her. Besides, the Reed family has no intention of taking the child. I think their sincerity is genuine. Mr. Harding sighed affectionately. I know you were hurt by the Vances and that scoundrel Chloe, but there are still good women in the world, aren't there? But she lied to me. Why didn't she just find me and say she wanted to repay our kindness? There were so many ways she could have shown her gratitude. Why did she have to do it like this? Mr. Harding couldn't help but laugh. Well, sir, you were in a bit of a rush. If Miss Reed hadn't intervened when she did, you might have already chosen someone else and been stuck with the consequences. It was a strategic move. Miss Reed was afraid she'd be too late and regret it for the rest of her life. I grabbed a pillow and buried my face in it. But I'm just so angry. And I hate her. Why should I give it a try with her? Even if I wanted to date, it wouldn't necessarily be her. There are plenty of beautiful, talented women in New York. Ms. Collins, another staff member, chuckled. All right. The master can date whoever he wants. But despite her words, Ms. Collins had clearly picked a side. The moment there was a whisper of me going on a date, Sophia knew about it. I had just sat down with my date at a cafe for afternoon tea when Sophia's Bentley pulled up across the street. We were both single, but for some reason, the moment her car appeared, I felt the guilt of being caught red-handed. Sophia didn't disturb me. She didn't even get out of the car. But I couldn't sit still. I forced myself to make an excuse and sent the woman I was with on her way. As the sky began to darken, I finally grabbed my bag and stood up to leave. Sophia got out of her car. The streetlights were turning on one by one, bathing her in a shimmering glow. I pretended not to see her and walked straight down the street. I walked all the way to the intersection without looking back, but I just knew she was following me. The walk signal turned green. As I was about to cross the street, Sophia gently grabbed my wrist from behind. A cyclist whizzed past me. Sophia pulled me in front of her. Winter was setting in New York. She was wearing a navy blue trench coat. Adam, she called my name softly. As a gust of night wind blew, she reached up and smoothed my messy hair. I noticed someone nearby seemed to be taking pictures. Over the past few weeks, I had heard all sorts of rumors about the Reed family and Sophia. She spent most of her time in Los Angeles, and when in New York, she was always extremely low-key and mysterious, her whereabouts unpredictable. But she had been visiting my house so frequently lately that she'd attracted the attention of gossip mongers and paparazzi. Sophia, I think someone's taking our picture, I said, trying to push her away. But Sophia simply let go of my wrist and wrapped her arms around my waist instead. Lily is almost a year old and about to say Dada. When are you going to make this official? Those photos and videos spread like wildfire across New York. Someone with too much time on their hands even started analyzing Sophia's lip movements, trying to figure out what she had said to me. Even Chloe came to my house. It was strange. She had been so in love with Julian, but it had been nearly 2 years since they announced their engagement, and they still hadn't held a wedding. I met her in the living room. Chloe was direct. The child is Sophia Reed's. I didn't answer, asking instead, what does that have to do with you? Adam, Sophia comes from an incredibly powerful family, and she's the sole heir on both sides. What do you think her motive is for getting close to you? She just wants to take the child. Whether she does or not, what does it have to do with you? Adam, I'm thinking of you. I'm afraid you'll be deceived and end up being the one who gets hurt. What could she possibly take from me? What if she tries to take Lily? You're overthinking things. Sophia arrived so quickly, Mr. Harding must have tipped her off again. I leaned back against the soft sofa, sipping my hot tea comfortably. Sophia strode into the living room, brushing off the snow. A servant quickly brought her favorite Longjing tea. She sat down beside me, as relaxed and at ease as if she were in her own home. Chloe looked uncomfortable, but forced herself to continue. Are you saying you have no such intention, Miss Reed? Lily is your child, and a daughter at that. Even if you don't, what about the elders in your family? I held my teacup, watching the tea leaves float and sink. This was a point I was also curious about, but I had never asked Sophia. Sophia took a sip of her tea, the lid clinking crisply against the cup. The room was warm, but outside, snow was falling heavily. I put down my cup to watch the snow, but Sophia took my hand. Lily will always be a foster. That will never change. When she said this, Chloe's face was a picture of astonishment. Sophia Reed, can you really do that? I couldn't help but look at her too. Let time be the judge. Anyone can say nice things. Anyone can make a promise. Chloe's face grew uglier. Sophia just chuckled. True. Anyone can make a promise. You and your grandmother should know that better than anyone. Chloe's face turned deathly pale. Yes. All the promises her grandmother had made in the past had, in the end, come to nothing. When my grandfather entrusted me to her, she too had promised to take good care of me, to help me protect the foster family. But in the end, I felt a sense of release. In that moment, I finally, completely let go. We expect something in return, and that's why we end up so disappointed. But when we ask for nothing, fate sometimes gives us the best possible arrangement. For example, sending Sophia Reed to me. After our engagement was settled, Sophia began to stay at the foster house as a matter of course. It was the same bedroom, the same quiet night. The only difference was that Sophia's face wasn't covered by a black silk blindfold. We had both had a little to drink. In a tipsy haze, I pushed her onto the sofa and studied her properly for the first time. What are you thinking about? About why you did all this. I had to repay a life-saving debt. The only way was to offer myself in marriage. I think I'm the one getting the short end of that stick, I teased. Sophia laughed and held me tighter, resting her chin on my shoulder. Adam, it was my fault. You're damn right it was your fault. You have no idea how much I hated you. And you have no idea how much I like you. Are you really letting Lily keep my last name? Of course. But the Reed and Grant families only have you. We have Lily now. But her last name is Foster. Is that so? Important? Sophia looked up and kissed me lightly. Does that make her any less my child? Does she not have the blood of both the Reed and Foster families? Few people could think so clearly. Everyone cares about different things, I guess. I couldn't help but smile. I cupped her face, just like that other night, and asked, Have you showered? I have, sir. Then, take off your clothes. Her eyes twinkled with laughter as she pulled me up and to the side. Then she stood up. In the warm room, Sophia raised her hands and undid the buttons of her shirt. She pulled the hem out crisply, then unbuckled her belt. But this time, I didn't look away. I watched until the very end. She coughed lightly, her scorching gaze sliding across my face. Adam, a man should be a little more reserved. I laughed and pulled her into my arms. Are you shy? Sophia held me steady and whispered in my ear, Sir, this time, may I kiss you? I didn't answer. I just lowered my head and kissed her.